Hi, I'm Justin. I have 20 years software development experience, and I'm also the founder of Decelium and FleetOps. I also consult through the professional services brand Raft Consensus. And I wanted to talk a little bit about zero cost decentralized multiplayer, just because it's been very fun to work on some multiplayer gaming projects over the last few years. And I wanted to talk about why people choose this path. So this is a notice I just pulled off the internet. These are easy to find from various games. Thank you for playing Crossing Pocket Camp app. We regret to inform you that online service for Animal Crossing Pocket Camp will end November 28, 2024. So this is just an admission from the company that they're not making money on this asset anymore, and they're just going to shut down the multiplayer aspects of this game and possibly, I've never played Pocket Camp, but I'm guessing that this probably bricks everyone's gaming account. So this is pretty devastating for people who've played the game and invested time in it. Um, you know, the gaming industry is difficult. If you sell 20,000 copies of a game and you make $1.5 million profit off the first sale, and say you've allowed some free players in and you have a $34,000 player base, or sorry, for 34,000 amount player base, you probably are looking at a $200,000 a year infrastructure budget plus a $300,000 a year engineering budget for 2 to 3 engineers maintaining your ops, and you will be out of money in 3 years. This is not including any work you have to do to release new IP or do anything else. This is just keeping the lights on, 3 years of runway. Um, However, if your users have the ability to host their own multi-user sessions, then why are you paying to host the multi-user sessions, right? And that's what I wanted to talk about in this talk, and what I'm seeing people put their energy into. Some people putting their energy into going forward, some businesses. What I'm discussing has to do with large and small game sessions. And the status quo is to use something like AWS, Google Cloud, or wrapper service like Photon to host your game sessions, right? It's really easy, quick and easy to get started. As a developer, you can focus on the game and you just let the cloud do all the server management for you. However, these server setups can get quite expensive over time, and the primary job of the developer turns into this person who pushes updates. Those get baked into the cloud, and a new version of the app runs, and you have to deal with this pipeline, which is standard. The problem is that as popularity grows, obviously first of all you have DDoS and bottleneck problems with your gateways, and second of all you have a cloud compute explosion. It becomes very challenging to handle the compute costs. The minimum cost after some research seems to be around 50 cents per player month. So, that amounts could be so different based on how your infrastructure is set up, how many, what your users are doing, what kind of game, FPS versus card game. But 50 cents per player month seems to be pretty typical. And when running the numbers, you realize that as a business, you kind of have a major challenge. Within 3 years, you have to figure out how to avoid this grim reaper, the operation costs, and you have to end up launching DLC and seasonal events, or you have to sell loot boxes and run a store, neither of which are really creating new content or really invest in the game, which the player base notices and they call you out for it. Like, why are you not developing anything new? Why are you not fixing these bugs? Why are you so busy selling random stuff on your store? It's a constant gamer problem, right? So if you fail release, you just lose the money. The studio closes. There are many, many famous examples, including the Animal Crossing example, including the Cycle Frontier, where a very popular game that had 50 or 60,000 active players just didn't have the scale or profitability to necessitate running the live service, right? This unreliable income and fixed liabilities can kill a lot of businesses. So what if these costs could be zero? What if the budget for hosting and bugs could be more like 10K a year, and if you just took your foot off the gas, you could coast for almost a decade after a successful launch, right? Then you could take the profit and actually reinvest it into new IP. The community can take on, the gamer community, the players themselves running their clients can actually take on the electricity and bandwidth costs. So first of all, is this possible? How is this possible? And why is no one doing this? Multi-agent coding is a relatively new domain. We're familiar with this concept of Web3, we're familiar with this concept of blockchain, but the technologies aren't really percolating into solving real business challenges very quickly. In fact, I would say that the major industries such as gaming and communications are more than 15 years behind on using some of these technologies to save money and to scale their platforms. People like engineers coming out of CS don't know what multi-agent coding is. It's not being taught in universities as standard curriculum, even though it's a very powerful paradigm. So we're familiar with phase zero, where multiplayer sessions where players hang out are hosted in the cloud, and you have some sort of session manager, which keeps track of all the telemetry data for all the sessions and can shut them down and spool them up. The first step of decentralizing is to find a way to have player hosted sessions. That gets people about 90% of the benefit. So if the rest of the presentation doesn't hit home, this is kind of the only transitional slide that really matters, is these heavy bandwidth real-time sessions or near real-time sessions, just move them on to consensus groups. If you do that, 90% of your costs evaporate. Is there a software and technical problem here? Yes. And on the other side of it is millions of dollars of savings, right? The second step one could take, which is not really necessary, but I will cover it, is to actually take the session managers and have them watch each other's sessions, right? To have a consensus around who's cheating, who's honest, who's dishonest. And the third step, which quite frankly I've never seen anyone do, but is possible, so it's worth mentioning, is to actually take your logs and your telemetry data and pack those into a technology like IPFS or Polygon, and so that you can just download it as you want, and it's actually custodied by the clients themselves. And then you have a really thin, almost free interface for managing your game and your code, which if you ever wanted to ditch the project entirely, you could just open source and launch to your community, and they can continue operating your game long after the project's dead, decades later, right? It's important to note, this is one of the most frequent questions I get, what about cheaters and hackers? And that's why you have consensus groups managing each other's lobbies. You would have to have more than 51% of the gaming population turn into hackers to have any sort of practical problem. Then it begs the question, if everyone wants a certain software update or a certain hack, it's an interesting sort of social problem to talk about. But generally speaking, I would say in every case I've ever seen, practically speaking, this consensus-based security keeps the network secure. In terms of speed, you're looking at about 100 milliseconds overhead doing a decentralized multiplayer solution today. So that kind of takes this solution and relegates it to maybe PvE, co-op, MMO, RPGs, chat and video apps, strategy games, and chat and board games, not for competitive shooters. Competitive shooters, for better or worse today, they need that bleeding. You need to have a round trip time that's very, very short, and 40 milliseconds to 70 milliseconds seems to be the standard. I would say that a PvP competitive shooter that is fully decentralized would be annoying to play. Another problem that people face when doing this is not realizing that it requires education and it is a new software domain. So certain things that developers are just used to doing are suddenly difficult. For example, searching a decentralized network for a player means you have to search the network for the player log. It's not just in one centralized SQL database. The same with listing, like just getting a list of all the most recent transactions is not trivial on a decentralized network. However, you get some stuff for free, right? It's very easy to protect yourself from DDoS. It's very easy to have 100% uptime. It's very easy to have infinite scalability. And these are problems that plague multiplayer experiences very, very quickly, right? Essentially, centralized systems are easy to search, copy, insert, and version control, and decentralized systems are easy to send. It's actually easy to download backups from the group of users. Not so easy to restore backups, right? Because you have to go to all the computers and instruct them to restore backups, so it's more computation. They're very easy to scale, secure, and keep running, and they're generally free. Essentially, centralized services are cheap and easy to set up, but expensive to run, and decentralized systems are harder to set up, but free to run. So, that means that if your success criteria is we need 100,000 people or our studio is bust, then maybe spending 15 to 20% more on the setup and knowing that your traction now doesn't have to be 100,000, it could be 5,000 or 10,000. You'll still get the 100,000 sales up front, but it doesn't matter if the player count dwindles after for a while you plan your next release. That could save a lot of businesses in the world. So that's my presentation. If you're curious about this concept or about how decentralization can help in any sort of multi-user processing environment, I'd love to chat. And thanks very much, and have a good day.